What?
So, it is my pleasure to introduce Falko Schilling, who is here to do just sort of a mini thing around rights so that we all know that we're talking about kind of the same thing.
All right. So, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. This is really exciting. I'm really excited to be in this room. My name is Falko Schilling. I'm originally from Saxons River, Vermont. And I'm a lawyer, and I work with the folks at Vermont Afterschool up in the State House, and we try and let all the lawmakers know how important it is for all the youth in Vermont to have access to summer and after-school learning programs. And before we dive into everything today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to actually write a Youth Declaration of Rights. And I'm going to start with a rap about the Declaration of Independence. I am not going to do that. I promise you I will not rap. That would be absolutely horrible. There would be no rapping.
I'm really hoping.
So, who can tell me why we're here today? That's exactly right. We're here to make a Youth Declaration of Rights. And to do that, we're going to need to all use our voices. And this is something I think about a lot when I get up in front of people. I need to use my voice. And just like any other muscle, like anything else, you got to warm up your voice and you got to be ready to go. So, I want you to join with me a little bit as I warm up, and you can get warmed up and get ready to use your voices. So, one of the first things I always do is I start by doing some face exercise. So, join me. We make some big, weird faces. As weird and as big as you can, work that face out. Great, you're doing great. Now I want you to puff out your cheeks as wide as you can go. That's great. All right, now we're going to do what I often will do, and it's make a sound that's almost like a whale. So you go, whoa. Ready? Whoa. Great, you guys are doing great. And I know this all seems really silly, and it is, but it's also important because you always want to be able to make sure you're using your voice as effectively as possible. So there's one more I'm going to have you do. And this is what I call my Santa Claus voice, or for the older folks in the room, it's a Seinfeld belly voice. Oh. So you start and go, can I hear, ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. One more time. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. Hello. Hello. La, la, la. All right, that's great. So you guys seem to be pretty warmed up. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you all to answer me all at once as loud as you can, all right? So, my name's Falko. What's your name? Aaron. I'm from Montpelier. Where are you from? I'm 32. How old are you? 30. Awesome. So this is great. I love the energy in this room, and I have no doubt that you guys are going to be great at using your voice. And so, we're here today because we're talking about a big conversation that's happening all the time around you that doesn't include you a lot of the time. And up in Montpelier and in Washington, D.C., there's committees that spend every single day, and they sit around and they say, what are we going to do for the youth? What do the youth need? But one of the problems is when they're having these conversations, they often aren't listening to the experts. Because you are the experts. No one knows better about what the youth need than the youth. And so that's what we're doing today. We're trying to bring your voice into that conversation. And before we ask you to go write a Declaration of Rights, we have to agree on a few ground rules. And so as a lawyer, we spend a lot of time agreeing what different words mean. And this is really helpful. Just like anything, any game, you all know, before you're starting a game, you need to understand what the rules are, or else things get really messy. So what does it mean to declare something? So I looked these up so you guys don't have to shout them back at me because that gets messy. To declare something means to say it emphatically or to let it be known. So all we're asking is for you to let people know what your rights are by writing them down. And so that's one definition out of the way. That's what a declaration is. Now we want to figure out what are rights. And that is a bigger and a trickier question. So I Googled it, and when you Google what are rights, it tells you it's a moral or legal entitlement to have or obtain something or act in a certain way. So that's kind of a mouthful, and that's not an easy thing to think about as we're doing this whole discussion. What it really boils down to is there are things that you all deserve because you're humans and you exist. And it's job of the people who make our laws to make sure you have those things. And that's the conversation that I'm going to keep talking about. And it's a conversation like this. It's the whole reason we have the United States of America. So in the 1700s, the colonists living here in America, they were ruled by a king in England, King George. And he did pretty much whatever he wanted. He did a whole lot of things that the colonists said, hey, I have a right to not have that happen. That's really, really stinky. So for instance, he said, I'm going to take your money for taxes. You get no say over how it gets used. We're going to hold meetings about you, or we're going to hold them across the ocean where you can't come. We're going to make soldiers stay in your home, and you have to feed them. And here in Vermont, the king even said, look, I know you guys are living on that land. You bought that land. But I'm going to let this other person over here sell that land, and then they're going to be able to kick you off, and then they're going to get paid for it. You're going to get no money for it. So all the colonists, they really got together and they said, we do not like this one bit. They came to Philadelphia and they wrote a really strongly worded letter saying, we don't like this, and stop. And the king just said, all right, cool. Didn't worry about it. They're like, all right, we got to do something more. So they took millions of dollars worth of tea and they dumped it in the harbor. And the king said, nah, I don't really care about that. And so the colonists and the folks at the convention in Philadelphia basically said, all right, no more of this. No more England. We're done. They don't respect us. They don't respect our rights. And they're like, okay, if we're going to say that, we need to get together and we need to write down why it is we're not doing this England thing anymore. And so Thomas Jefferson and a couple of his friends, they got together and they wrote this thing. It's called the Declaration of Independence. Similar to what we're doing here today. They're declaring their rights. And so this starts out by saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then it went on to list all the reasons that King George was a jerk and that we're breaking up with him. And they sent it over, and that started a whole war. So that was the Revolutionary War. And after we won the Revolutionary War, I was like, yay, we won! Then you're like, all right, how are we going to do better? And that's the conversation that's been happening for 200 years, and it's part of the conversation you're part of today. So they said, all right, let's get together, let's try and write something down. So they wrote the first draft of the Constitution. And in this draft, they said, all right, so here's what the president can do, here's what Congress can do, here's what the courts can do. And then all the states, they looked and they said, well, we just fought a whole war over the fact that our rights were being taken away from us. I don't really trust this whole U.S. government thing yet. Let's make it a little clearer what you can and can't do. And so that's how we got the Bill of Rights. And so they said, all right, let's write some things down. So number one, we aren't going to make any religion. You can have whatever religion you want. You can say whatever you want. We aren't going to get in the way of that. In states, you can keep your militias. We promise no more soldiers in your homes. We aren't going to search your stuff unless we have a really good reason. We aren't going to take your stuff unless we have a really good reason. You have a right to a fair trial with your peers. We can't try you twice. And then also, if we didn't say something was a right here, it doesn't mean it's not a right. We just didn't write it down. And we can add more later. And finally, all the rights that we didn't talk about here, and all the powers that we didn't just give to the federal government, that's still up to the states to decide. And so people from around the country said, all right, this sounds good. I mean, we can sign on to this. And that's how the United States was created. They said, all right, this all sounds good. We're going to sign on to this big document. We like what you wrote down, but we think you missed a couple things. And so, for instance, when Vermont joined the Union, first state after the Constitution was ratified in 1791, they said, we really like that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness thing you guys wrote down. That's really great. But that doesn't seem to work with slavery, right? That doesn't work. And so in the Vermont Constitution, we were the first to say, you can't have slavery. We also said some more things, gave people more rights in the Vermont Constitution than they're given under the federal Constitution. For instance, We said that youth and children have the right to an education. That's a pretty big deal. They also said some other things like you have the right to go hunting and fishing because that's where people get a lot of their food. So this is how our system works. The federal government is really the baseline. They say, all right, here's things that everyone gets, states you get to figure out the rest. And you got to do a lot of the work to figure out how things are going to work in your states. And that's the conversation we're trying to plug you into, because we want you to be part of the conversation of what was left off that list that Thomas Jefferson wrote. He only put 3 things on there, and there's a lot more rights than just those 3 things. And that's why we have the ability to amend the Constitution and make new laws, and thank goodness that we do. Because when Thomas Jefferson wrote Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, he somehow forgot that he owned slaves himself and was denying those very people the rights he just talked about. And when the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution, they also forgot that women are people too, and they have the right to vote and to own property. There were some pretty major screw-ups. And this is why the Constitution has been amended over 20 times. And this is why our state constitution has been amended many times. And this is why we go up to Montpelier every January through May. I'm sitting up there every day because we're having a constant conversation with the people who make our laws about what are the rights. And in particular, in this room, we're going to have a conversation about what are all the things that the youth of Vermont need to be the best versions of themselves. And so before we start talking about the specifics of what we're going to ask you to do, I want you to remember a few things when you think about rights. So when we say that something is a right, we're agreeing that it's a right for everyone. Saying something is a right is agreement that we uphold it for everyone. So for instance, in the Constitution it says you can practice whatever religion you want. When we say that, what we are saying is if someone is infringing on your right to practice your religion, it is our responsibility, all of our responsibility, to make sure your rights are being upheld. And when we're talking about rights, we need to remember they apply to everyone equally. And so when you're thinking about this, think about yourselves, but also think about your classmates. Think about your brothers, think about your sisters, and think about what they need to be the best versions of themselves. And so we also want to think a little bit more about what are needs versus things we might want. So for instance, I could say, I think I have a right to pizza every single day. And then I have to ask myself, all right, I might want pizza every single day, but do I need pizza every day? Does everyone need pizza every single day? No, but people need food. And so yeah, food is a right. People have a right to food. And I might say, I have a right to live in a mansion with a swimming pool. And then once again, you have to ask yourself, does everyone need to live in a mansion with a swimming pool? No, but everyone needs shelter. Everyone needs a safe place to live. So yeah, that's a right too. And so I am really excited to sit back and listen to what you have to say. And I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm excited to sit back down. And as you see the adults around this room, and as Holly said, it's our job to listen to you. So we want to make sure your voice is heard and that's coming out. And just like the Founding Fathers gathered in Philadelphia over 200 years ago, we want you to work together to declare these rights to us and to everyone else in Vermont. And we're going to be bringing these words to people up in the State House and to people across the state. And I've been doing a lot of talking and I'm ready to sit down. So I just want to check, are you ready to declare your rights?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't loud. One more time. Are you ready to declare your rights?
Yeah.
One more time. Are you ready to declare your rights?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Now this is going to help us out and move us into the rest of the day.
Stop. Do that.